motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route.
Who controls the past, controls the future. Who controls the present, controls the past.
The death of bin Laden marks the most significant achievement to date in our nation's effort to defeat Al-Qaeda.
All you got to do is start looking around, start thinking for yourself, start investigating things, and you will see it all right there. So you have the power. Humanity has the power. We have the power. Do you want to fight? You better believe you got one.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
As for me, give me liberty or give me death!
The answer to 1984 is 1776.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. Today's date is Wednesday, June 26, 2013. I'm your host, Rob Dew. We're almost halfway through the year. In fact, we're more than halfway through the year. Here's a look at our top stories.
Tonight, Michael Hastings' wife vows to take down whoever is responsible, as Staff Sergeant Joseph Biggs reveals that Hastings was working on his biggest story yet about the CIA before his untimely death.
You know how people are going to react to this. They're going to say that the tinfoil hat people think the government killed this journalist.
Then, a former terrorist releases video testimony that says Al-Qaeda in Syria is being led by the CIA. Tell us something we don't know. And Kevin Booth talks to Infowars about American Drug War II. That's up next on the Infowars Nightly News.
We begin tonight with a couple stories from Paul Joseph Watson concerning the death of journalist Michael Hastings. The first one, this was from yesterday. Friend Michael Hastings was working on the biggest story yet about CIA. And this comes out of revelations from his friend Sergeant Joe Biggs, who Michael Hastings was embedded with when he was in Afghanistan in 2008. And Fox News had Joe Biggs on to talk about the releasing of an email that Michael sent out just hours before his car mysteriously blew up. It's interesting to note Mercedes has yet to come forward and say that their cars are perfectly safe and no one needs to be worried about them spontaneously blowing up when you're driving through the streets of L.A. But there's a couple things I want to go over. Biggs said he contacted Mercedes asking them if it was normal for their cars to blow up to that extent and for the engine to fly 100 feet out from the side of the crash. He also confirmed that Hastings was working on a story about the CIA and said it was going to be the biggest story yet. Some other parts of this timeline, WikiLeaks reported that Hastings had contacted them in the hours before his death, complaining that he was under investigation for the FBI by the FBI. Cenk Unger from the Young Turks said he was incredibly tense and very worried. BuzzFeed editor Ben Smith added that Hastings had told friends and family he was very concerned that he was being under investigation, and an anonymous source said he was very paranoid and that he was being watched by the FBI. His his panicked email that Biggs released says, "Hey, the feds are interviewing my closest friends and associates. Also, onto a big story, need to go off the radar for a bit." So that was yesterday, and we're going to go to this clip. This is Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs yesterday on Fox and Friends, I believe, with Megyn Kelly.
Well, what was he investigating, as far as you know, that would have caused any consternation whatsoever by someone?
CIA, but from what he said, or one of the things he said is it was going to be the biggest story yet.
You know how people are going to react to this. They're going to say that the tinfoil hat people think the government killed this journalist by taking over his car, doing something to his car.
Auto driving.
Here we go. Away we go. Look, Ma, no hands. No hands anywhere. No hands, no feet. No hands, no feet. No nothing. I love it. So we're here at the stop sign. Yep. Cars using the radars and laser to check and make sure there's nothing coming.
Wow. We tinfoil hat wearers. We believe he be killed by the government. Megyn Kelly, government mouthpiece, says tinfoil hat wearers ask questions. Only people like me read from teleprompter. Here it is. Man, I tell you what. And then, you know, we put a little video in there of the Google car driving by itself. We had a caller actually called in the Alex Jones show today who said back in 1999 when his mother was killed in a car crash, all the way over in Germany, they got a readout of how the airbag deployed, and they had problems getting all this information out from the company. I think one of the companies was Bosch, who made the airbag deploy algorithm, and they couldn't get that from them. But back in 1999, they had this technology to get readouts from the cars through the little black boxes. So if you don't believe they could take control of your car right now, oh, maybe you need to put on tinfoil hat. Man, it is just crazy out there. And on top of that, Paul Joseph Watson writes today, Michael Hastings' wife vows to take down whoever did this. Wife of Rolling Stone journalist Michael Hastings has vowed to take down whoever did this, according to the man who released the email that we know is now Sergeant Joseph Biggs. Staff Sergeant Joseph Biggs, who told Fox and Friends yesterday Hastings was working on the biggest story yet, which we just heard, was responsible for releasing an email Hastings wrote 15 hours before the car crash, in which the journalist stated he was onto a big story and needed to go off the radar for a bit. Biggs tweeted the reason that he released the email was because Hastings' other friends and colleagues who received it were too scared to do so. Why would they be too scared? I mean, they have nothing to worry about. Megyn Kelly said so. Biggs, who met Hastings when he was embedded as a journalist in Afghanistan in 2008, added, I won't let this man die in vain because I'm too scared of what will happen to me. If I sent that email to Mike, he wouldn't rest. He would fight. He also added that he drove like a grandma. And earlier this week, we pointed out that counterterrorism czar Richard Clarke told the Huffington Post that the fatal car crash of Hastings' Mercedes 250 coupe was consistent with a car cyber attack. And we just showed you video of a car being driven around by itself via Google, of course. So if Google can take control of a car and they're a front for the CIA and NSA, what makes you think that they can't do the same to any car out there that probably was manufactured since 2005? Well, at the end of the show today, in the final hour, we were able to get in touch with Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs, and we're going to play the entire interview that he did with Alex today, just in case you missed it. If you didn't catch it on the Alex Jones show, we're going to have it here. It's very informative, very interesting. You kind of get in the mindset of people when they're faced with this type of crisis, as they're starting to answer questions and ask questions and find out what's going on. It looks like Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs is going to launch his own investigation, which is the responsibility of citizen journalists. When you have people like Megyn Kelly out there who just say we shouldn't question anything, cars just blow up and engines just get ejected 100 feet from where they roll off the road and kind of crash into a tree. Interestingly enough, somebody went to that site where they put a little memorial up and put a sign there in red that says this is not an accident. And we'll show you that right after this interview.
This man has a lot of courage. Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs told Fox News' Megyn Kelly that something didn't feel right. And he went on in a RT article that we have on Infowars.com, Michael Hastings' wife vows to take down whoever did this. That's a quote. That's pretty bombshell. So he joins us now, and I think the best place to start was who Michael Hastings was, how Staff Sergeant Biggs points out in the quotes here that, hey, if this happened to me, Michael Hastings would be sticking up and investigating for me, and that everybody else is too scared to talk. Wow. So wherever you'd like to start, sir, I appreciate you coming on.
Well, thanks for having me on.
You bet. You've got the floor. I mean, tell us whatever you think you should get across to people.
All right. Well, yeah, like you said, back in 2008, I was deployed in Coast Province in Afghanistan, and my commander pulled me into his office, and he's like, well, we're going to have two embedded journalists, a photographer and a journalist, and they're going to follow you around for the next week or so. So the next week or so turned into almost about 3 months. And you get to learn a lot about a person in 1 day of combat, let alone 3 months of being around them. This was his first time in that kind of a situation, too, if I'm not mistaken, actually in Afghanistan doing that. And I was telling people, they were like, well, how was Michael? I was like, he was a fearless guy. I mean, I can remember one day in particular, right around the Pakistan border, we were being ambushed, and as the firefight's going over, I'm looking on, or look over to Michael, and he's looking up. He's like, is it over yet? He's like, is there more? And like, he just looked excited, like he loved his job, and there wasn't a thing to scare him. So when this email comes to me, and well, from 2008 on, him and I would talk all the time. He would ask me how I was doing, how, you know, I was telling him I was having nightmares, I was coming back, I was dealing with a lot of stuff with, you know, some deaths of people over there, and it was just a hard time. And Mike was one of the guys that called me up from time to time and check on me. So we built a pretty strong relationship in that sense. And from time to time, he would email me and tell me about stories he was working on and ask me what I thought about this, if he ever wrote about something that had to do with the military. I remember when the story broke on General McChrystal, he gave me a call, and he's like, man, I'm pretty scared, and, you know, I told him, I was like, you got every reason to be, brother. I was like, you just basically got a general of a war fired. I'm pretty sure that doesn't sit too well with him right now. And he went on to just share concerns about how, you know, he knew there was probably a chance that people would be looking into him, and I completely understand that. So last Monday morning, I wake up and I get this email from Mike, and usually the emails start off with, hey, brother, how's it going? You know, how's your family? How are you adjusting to civilian life because I'm out of the military now? This time it was just that. Everyone has the email because I released it, you know, saying that he believed the FBI was going to be investigating his colleagues and close friends, and it just didn't seem like something that he normally started the email off with. And when I read it, I just got this horrible feeling, like something's not right. I immediately called him, and I didn't get an answer. I was like, well, he's probably busy. So I go to school and try to brush it off. I told a few of my friends, like, you know, what do you think about this? I don't think something's right. You know, what if a friend sent you this email? How would you react? And a lot of them were like, man, that's scary stuff. I don't know what to do. So I go to a work event. I come home, and a friend calls me that night. She's like, hey, did you hear what happened to Mike? And I said, what do you mean? Yeah, he died in a crash. So I jumped on turned on my TV, got on the internet, started looking up stuff, and started watching these videos, and things just didn't add up. You know, first email, then I'm reading that he called the WikiLeaks lawyer, which that I'm not sure about. I know he contacted a lawyer in recent days, but the whole WikiLeaks lawyer, I'm not sure about that. But then the crash, why was there an investigative reporter happened to be filming with his dash cam right as Michael drove by? I mean, who's out filming an empty street at 4-something in the morning? I mean, all these alarms were going off, and my gut feeling from day one, from before it happened, I knew that something wasn't right. There's too many things that added up. And
did Afghanistan and all those years of combat, did that hone your gut instinct?
Yeah. Just anybody. If you know someone and they act out of reason, out of like their normal behavior, you know, that should go off on, that should send a red light off to anybody with, you know, that's had a close friend. Let's talk about,
and then all the points you want to get into, but let's talk about why you decided to go public. You talked about the rest of the people that were sent the email as close friends and family like yourself are scared. And I know you've had a chance to talk to some of them. Describe how they're scared. And then there's the FBI denying he sent emails and stuff. Meanwhile, you know there was an email, so I guess that's why you released it. Or correct me if I'm wrong. But let's get into they're too scared to release an email that the FBI may raid us, and they're talking to my friends and family. He wouldn't lie about that. And then meanwhile, I'm going off the radar. I'm going into hiding. Wow. I mean, I hope I don't say, I'm going into hiding. Look out. And then my car blows up. I mean, wow.
Yeah. I actually emailed some of the people that were on that he sent the names on the email to, some of the people at BuzzFeed. And I said, hey, did you guys get that email? Now he's dead. Does anybody else think this weird? I got one response back, yeah. And I go, yeah, question mark, question mark, question mark. That's it. And I waited 5 minutes. And I mean, 5 minutes, you know, after your friend died seems like an eternity. And no one's saying anything. And I'm getting on the internet, and I'm like, all right, somebody's got to come out and say something. Someone's got to, I can't be the only person that thinks this is just weird. So I asked my mom, asked some people, and they're like, well, what, you know, I was like, what should I do? And everyone's like, man, that's some scary stuff to get into. And I just sat there for a minute. and basically said, F it, I'm just going to do it. And Mike would do the same thing for me. He's not going to sit back and roll over. And, you know, I'm not a journalist. I'm not an investigator. I don't know what steps to take. All I know is I lost a friend. I'm pissed off. I want to find out what happened. And like I told his wife and some of his other friends, I'm going to do whatever the hell I got to do to figure this out. And if at the end of the day it turns out to be an accident, then whatever. But right now, things don't add up to be that way. There's too many unanswered questions that need to be, there's too many just...
Sure. Well, let me tell you when you're really going to wake up. I've been physically attacked by the shadow government. I've been threatened. I've seen amazing things. And so many times, that's why we've got to engage in investigative journalists and investigative journalism is so you'll find out for yourself how corrupt things have gotten. I mean, look at the NSA being used against the Associated Press. Look at pro-life groups and Tea Parties being harassed by the IRS. I mean, this government is out of control. It's been persecuting journalists and whistleblowers like no other president before them. And so it's not a stretch to say, hey, he's got the biggest story ever. Tell us about that. I mean, that's in the email. And he also reportedly told his wife that. But specifically, give us what info you have. Staff Sergeant Joseph Biggs here joining us in an in-depth interview, not just sound bites on Fox News. I mean, for me, that's big, too, that I'm on this big story. The FBI is probably going to raid us. They're questioning people. I'm going into hiding. Boom!
Yeah, like I said, just that, all that leading up, that email and then that happening, and just that, there's too many, he was on edge. I mean, everyone that knew him was agreeing the days leading up, he was very on edge. And like you said, in the subject line mentioning the NSA and the thought that the FBI was questioning his friends and associates, that alone makes his death soon afterwards suspicious.
Let me say this. Let me say this while I have you. I'm begging you to get a hold of his wife, who you know. And believe me, I've studied this. I can put her in contact with national security whistleblowers and people that have really fought the system and won. Whatever she knows the investigation was, she's either got to tell the government, call the FBI, and say, I'm never going to talk about this, or she's got to go public with all of it. And the safest thing is to go public immediately. Do you have any idea what it was dealing with the CIA that he said was the biggest thing he'd ever had?
That's all she knew. She didn't know anything else. She told me. She said, Mike would not tell me anything. She said, you know, basically, from the sound of that, would just be for her own protection.
Yeah, of course.
I spoke to her at the memorial service, what was it, this past Saturday. A buddy of mine called me and said, hey, there's a plane leaving in 2 hours. Let's go up there to the service. So I hopped on and flew up to Vermont and stayed at a hotel up there, and then went and saw his wife and family and all of them. And, you know, she pretty much came out and said that he wouldn't tell her anything at all. So I don't think you're going to get anything out of her in that sense.
Well, that's good for her. That's good for her, because if he told any other colleagues anything, they're all under NSA surveillance, and if this was a hit, which my gut and all evidence says it was, there's going to be more deaths on this.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be lying. I'd be lying to you if I wouldn't say I wasn't checking my car every damn day, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's because you've lived in the real world. I feel sorry for the sheep out there that don't realize that, you know, the press is under attack. Did you see him on the Young Turks shortly before he died, Mr. Hastings?
Yeah, I was just watching that last night.
And he said, we declare war on this corrupt system that's declared war on the press. The press has to stand up together. And they were afraid of that Colonel Travis type attitude. I'm telling you, they were scared of him.
Well, Michael wrote in one of his books and on Reddit that he had been told, if we don't like what you write, we'll hunt you down and kill you. So, I mean, that's, you know, for him to say something like that, those are his own words. That's pretty intense.
I haven't read the books, but obviously I need to look them up. You know which one of his books?
I can get back to you on that one. I mean, that'd be
I'll search
easy.
it. Guys, search Hastings books. There's the Operators, and there's one other. I read part of the Operators online.
Yeah, I'm in the Operators. I don't think it's in that one.
Yeah, no, I've been... Listen. It's people that haven't gone through this just don't know. I mean, I've had him call up, tell me what I was talking about on the phone just so I know who it is, and then threaten me. I mean, this country is just in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I agree.
Listen,
yesterday though with Megyn Kelly, I was pretty upset because I was asked to some topics I wanted to go over, and as soon as I got there, it was just kind of bing bang boom. She kind of didn't really give me a chance to discuss them.
Well, sir, you've got that chance now. What are the points you want to make here?
Well, like I said, I'm no journalist, and I don't know how to go about all this stuff. But I mean, I reached out to Mercedes-Benz and wrote an email, and I don't know how often they're able to get something like this. But I mean, one of the things that you need to find out is how often in wrecks with Mercedes, and on top of this, let's remember Mercedes is one of the safest types of cars there is, especially nowadays, that an engine, comes out. And looking at the fire from that, I've been blown up in Iraq and Afghanistan and completely engulfed in flames, but it never looked that bright. I mean, it never looked that big. And I can tell you from firsthand experience from surviving, IED explosions, it was never at that magnitude that car just, spontaneously, just explodes from hitting a tree.
Yeah, I've been told it looks like 5 to 8 pounds of plastic explosive, probably underneath the car, right where he was sitting, or in the dashboard. And they debate whether it was 30 yards up to 50 yards or longer that it shot this.
I've heard up to 100, and another thing is the eyewitness saying that they saw sparks before the impact, and then another person inside their house said that it sounded like a bomb going off. So, cars hitting trees don't sound like bombs going off.
Well, plus, I've seen the photos, Staff Sergeant. It looks like it came to rest up against a tree. The witnesses said it blew up in the street and jackknifed, and then basically then was thrown into a tree.
Yeah, well, that's what I think as well. I was talking to one of my buddies earlier. The way the engine's lying, it had to have come out before even being near that tree. I mean, the car's not going to hit a tree, and then the engine, it would have been some kind of mark where the engine had ricocheted off the tree and gone in some direction. Instead, it, in the same direction of travel before this,
Yeah, that's right. The car, according to 3 witnesses, blows up in the street. The engine flies out the front down the road. Then it comes to rest up against a tree. If it hit on the side and the engine broke off, which, according to engineers, they say they're so bolted to that frame, it'd be incredibly hard to even break it loose. It would have shot through the fence into the person's house, not the opposite direction down the road.
Yeah. Well, we definitely need an independent expert investigation. And I'd love to try to get a fund to purchase the wreck and have it examined by someone. That'd be fantastic on all ends, because I really don't trust the LAPD to be making some sound decisions on something like that. I mean, how do you rule out foul play in a matter of hours?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. And then Breitbart, they announced he died of a heart attack 45 minutes after he was at the hospital. That's never done. The coroner wasn't even there. And then the guy that did the coroner examination died of poisoning a month later. I mean, come on, folks. This is getting insane. Now, expanding on this, when did you talk to his wife? I mean, was it at the funeral or via email? Was it the memorial or via email where she said that I'm going to take down whoever did this?
She, when we were at the service, she pulled me aside and talked to me, and she was like, thanks for having, basically the courage to do this and trying to help out. And she's like, I'm definitely... she's basically the way she said it, she's like, I'm going to do what I can to look into this with everything I got. And, when she did it, she put her hand on me and she just gave me this look. And I mean, she looked like a pit bull, like she is protecting the person she loves more than anything, and she's pissed off. And it was the hardest thing for me to see, just because you could see how bad she was torn up. And it was a horrible... Just to see that, that man was loved by so many people. He was a great guy. A lot of people hated him when that story with McChrystal broke. They hated him. But I tell you right now, for the soldiers, I got much respect for that man. I respected the hell out of him. He spoke the truth, and he wasn't afraid to tell anybody that. And if they lied, he'd call them out. Why all of a sudden is it wrong to be truthful and not stick up for what's right?
There was a gentleman went by the name Colonel Six out of Dallas, African-American member of the military, and he would send me all this great info and said McChrystal's going to go down soon and stuff. And then about 6 months later, he did. And then Colonel Six said, I've got intel I'm going to give you. This is on record. And then it was in the news the next week. He committed suicide in Fort Worth. and it turned out he was everybody he said he was. Colonel Six was his nickname. And people can look up the guy's full name and everything, but it's just so many people. And I'm not trying to scare people for the globalist. I want people to understand, though, you've had a lot of military investigators killed that investigate missing money. You know, there's so many examples of this, and we need to stand for the free press in the memory of Michael Hastings. And I'll say this, I didn't really know who I mean, I knew who he was, but I didn't know if I, really respected him totally or not, because I wasn't sure until I saw interviews he did about the NSA and saying, we've got to come together, the government's coming after us, they're thugs, this is illegal, we've got to organize, for American freedom. It was so powerful, and then I saw other interviews, and it seemed in the weeks, because then I went back and watched more, I went and watched interviews from a year ago, 6 months ago, they weren't the same. 2 weeks before he died, he was doing interviews and was energized with like he'd discovered incredibly bad things. And I mean, did you notice a change in him in those videos?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, when I was watching last night, I could definitely see a fire under him. He was definitely pretty motivated.
Wouldn't you like to know what he discovered?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we've just got to, like I said, slow and steady wins the race. This is something that's not going to be figured out immediately, but I've just got to have patience, and I've reached out to people via Twitter, and a lot of people have really come forward and been willing to help me. I got a guy that lives in L.A. who's pretty much an expert with the phobias. He's already sent one to the FBI, and the FBI has already sent back the letter, and he sent me a copy saying that they've received it, and we'll be looking into it.
Well, listen, all you've got to do is this. You've got to start a defense fund on one of the crowdsourcing sites, or just set up a PayPal or something to get the basic money to go out there for like a month. You get his wife to sign a power of attorney to let you get the car. Now here's the deal. I shouldn't even be announcing this on air. They will try to scrub the car, but if you get there and it's had chemicals, extra chemicals sprayed, it's been scrubbed, still you'll be able to find explosive residue. You've got to get it to independent forensic people. But here's the thing. I got to warn you, just like they killed the coroner of Breitbart, I believe this was a car bombing. Understand, and you've been in combat, so you're not a wimp. I admire you, and I admire Mr. Hastings. I don't know what I would do in this situation. They will probably try to off whoever goes to try to do samples of that car. I'm telling you, this is serious business. Just like TWA Flight 800, reporters snuck in and got the explosive residue, that it was a U.S. Air Force continuous rod warhead. I had the top general on who blew the whistle, General Parton as well. They arrested the reporters and put them in jail for a long time for breaking into the hangar. So I'm just telling you, this isn't a game, and I know you know that.
Yeah, and like I said before, I'm not making any kind of, I believe this is what really happened right now. Like I said, based off facts, things don't add up right now. So whether he be murdered or it was an accident, I can't rule out the worst that would be him being murdered. I can't rule that out because right now there's no factual proof to disprove that. So
you'd have to be insane to ignore all the things that happened, all the ingredients.
There's going to be so many people out there. Most people, like you said, they just read their news and drink their coffee and go to work and they're happy, and that's all there is. And they go on about it and come back to their homes or the white picket fences and everything's all lollygags and happy and all that stuff, but they don't realize that what people go through to really stick up for this country and things like that, and there's a lot of people out there as well that are willing to do whatever they have to do to keep some of their secrets down. So
absolutely. Well, I can only respect your incredible courage, sir, and I'd like to continue to get you on as things unfold. And if you need any help investigating this, if the family wants me to, I'm willing to go to Los Angeles. I mean, I'm committed to this, and if they kill me, I want people to investigate what happened to Alex Jones, just like you're doing for your buddy. I believe that Mr. Hastings is directly in heaven because God loves people that have courage and God hates cowards. Speaking, if you could talk to Michael right now, Staff Sergeant Biggs, what would you say to him?
That it was amazing to see the amount of people that he affected through his life. I just hope that one day that I'm able to have that much of an impact on people's lives as he did. He was loved by many. He was a fearless man. He was one of the greatest people I've known, and I have unwavering respect for this guy. And like I told his friends and family, I'm not going to sleep on this. I'm committed, and he should know that we're not going to just sit back and roll over, because I know if the roles were reversed, he'd do the same thing for me.
Well, Pat Tillman's brother pushed, and they found out he was murdered.
Yeah.
We've got about a...
giving up.
Well, God bless you, man. I really respect you, and that's why I say our military is such great people. Even if these wars, many of them are corrupt and wrong, the people that are doing it, got in for the right reasons and have just done things that the average public has no idea how hard it is. And Mr. Hastings was in a war for freedom in this country, and he said that. And I just want to commend you for what you're doing, Staff Sergeant. We got about a minute left. Anything else you'd like to add?
Like I said, if anybody has any kind of information or anything like that, I just, they can contact you and you guys can get a hold of me, and you can find me on Twitter because everyone has been able to do it recently.
Give us your actual Twitter account.
At RAMBOBIGGS, at Rambo Big.
So obviously, Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs is concerned enough, A, to fly to the funeral and memorial of his fallen friend and talk with his wife, but also to even possibly launch his own investigation. He's strongly considering it. We'll see where that leads him. But here I want to show you this picture, and this is off of patdollard.com. He posted this picture right there. This was not an accident. And there it is, written in red at the site of where his car was reportedly going over 100 miles an hour and flew into this tree. The tree, of course, didn't fall, and the engine was then ejected because, every Mercedes has its own engine ejection switch. When you're about to hit a crisis or something, you eject the engine 100 feet from your car. That's the way it works, people. Don't you know that? Don't you know anything about cars these days? Very interesting, and this is obviously scratching the surface of what's going to be another big thing. Interestingly enough, also, there were two detectives that had an assassination hit on them. This is just coming out. I read it in Huffington Post and also saw it on another website, Daily Mail Online, where two detectives coming back in from work in the early morning hours were ambushed by a gunman. They returned fire. They weren't seriously injured. Interestingly enough, they didn't find anybody. They didn't find any. They detained a few people, but determined that they weren't the suspects. So were these two detectives working on this case? Who knows? There's the Huffington Post right there. LAPD detectives shot while returning to police station. 3 people detained. I think later it says that they released those people in the search. They, of course, when their own gets shot, they cordon off 25 block areas with tanks and people running around with automatic weapons, which is the kind of response you would expect from the LAPD. So is this a case of they're trying to cover up and they're trying to silence the investigators? Maybe they really weren't trying to kill them. Maybe they're just trying to scare them, to shut them up. Moving on to a First Amendment case. This is from Kurt Nimmo. Judge outlaws First Amendment in bank graffiti case. And this is a guy who was going around on chalk and using chalk to write in front of Bank of America stuff like, "No thanks, big banks, shame on Bank of America." Really hardcore messages like that. Well, anyway, a high-ranking security bank manager contacted the police, and the San Diego City attorney decided to prosecute this man here. His name is Jeff Olson, charged with 13 counts of vandalism and faces time in prison for expressing his opinion on a public sidewalk using chalk that will wash away in the rain. Judge Howard Shore said the messages were directed at the banking industry have nothing to do with the First Amendment. In light of the fact that it's a clear case of case law, vandalism is not a legitimate exercise of free speech rights. It's really irrelevant what the message is or what the content is. But then Nimmo goes on to point out children are not arrested for drawing on sidewalks with washable chalk, and citizens putting up signs for garage sales or private businesses in public common areas are rarely arrested or prosecuted. So this looks like a case of the city going after and protecting the big banks and then not allowing it to be a case of First Amendment. We go now to this clip where you can actually hear from the words himself, Jeff Olson, on the horrible things he wrote on the sidewalk.
A North Park man is looking at more than a decade behind bars for using washable chalk to protest the banking industry.
I wrote, "No thanks, big banks." I wrote, "Shame on Bank of America."
For Olson, it was about free speech.
In light of the fact that it's clear from the case law that vandalism is not a legitimate exercise of free speech rights, it really is irrelevant what the message is or what the content is.
It's irrelevant because I'm most likely funded by Bank of America or cronies in that system. Did I just say that? I don't actually know if the judge in question, his name is Howard Shore, has any connections to big banking or big business. But I wouldn't be surprised. We actually ran a special about that, how judges are sponsored like NASCAR drivers by giant companies because they don't make enough in their salaries that we pay. So they have to be sponsored by giant corporations. Moving on. There's another I told you so story. Ex-terrorists, Al-Qaeda in Syria being led by who? CIA. This is from Paul Joseph Watson. And this has to do with former Al-Qaeda member Sheikh Nabil Naim. He's released an astounding video testimony in which he asserts that the leader of the Jabhat al-Nusra, the primary fighting force in Syria attempting to topple Bashar al-Assad, is a CIA operative. He said, and this is a quote, "I personally believe the leader of the Nusra army who declared his support for Amin al-Zawahiri is a CIA operative," states the Sheikh. Naim also identified Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri as a U.S. double agent. No duh. There was a story a few years ago that Fox released that talks about, was it Zakari? No, Anwar al-Awlaki, that's who it was. Anwar al-Awlaki died at the Pentagon right after 9/11. Then he became the number 2 of Al-Qaeda. Then we had to take him and his son out with a drone strike in Yemen without even getting him a trial. His son was only 16 years old, obviously a threat to America. Moving back on to the story, Naim states that the U.S. has been allowing Al-Qaeda to fight in Afghanistan for 18 years and have funded and supported us, adding that members of the militant group are being manipulated. And he also put out a warning saying, listen guys, after America takes over Syria, they're going to come after you guys. So you're fighting for America, and we're going to go to that video now.
أنتم مخدوعون وأنتم أدوات تستخدمكم أمريكا لتحقيق أغراضها في المنطقة، وهي تمزيق الوطن العربي إلى دويلات عن طريق الحروب الطائفية، ويكون مصيركم إما القتل وإما السجن مثلنا. فبعد أن عدنا من أفغانستان تم اعتقالنا بحجة أننا إرهابيون. طب ما أمريكا سايبانا بنقاتل 14 سنة.
You can watch the full video in the article on Infowars.com. Ex-terrorist Al-Qaeda in Syria being led by CIA, and that's from Paul Joseph Watson, a tireless fighter in the Infowar. We actually had him on here yesterday doing the Infowars Nightly News. I think his first since he's got back from Bilderberg. And it was great to have him on, and he had a story talking about how is Snowden a double agent, which is a very interesting prospect considering the amount of information he got and the way he got it and the way he's acting. I personally believe that Edward Snowden is a whistleblower. He might have been profiled and they might have given him this information in order, and knowing that he would go and do this after being profiled by the CIA. Anytime you become an employee of the CIA, you go through rigorous tests, psychological tests, personality tests, behavior tests. Anytime you get up into a high level like that, those types of tests are going on. So they can identify who would be a potential whistleblower, who won't follow orders, who won't torture, who won't arrest, secret arrest and indefinitely detain people. They know who to out at the right time. So that's the way people are being manipulated. Another way is through our food, and this story comes out of Gaia Health, which we posted on Infowars.com. I like that OTS there. Latest food additive, scorpion poisoning, or scorpion poison. This is from Heidi Stevenson out of Gaia Health. Get ready for genetically engineered cabbages that come with their own scorpion poison, just for you to eat. It's touted as requiring less pesticide use and, of course, being completely safe. Close investigation indicates that neither claim is true. A pesticide made with scorpion poisoning is genetically engineered into a virus and has been tested back since 1994. Interestingly, the scientists who sprayed the field wore full body suits to protect them from this harmless poison. And Professor David Bishop, who insisted the trial was safe, opted to take a vacation instead of being present for the tests. Heidi also points out, goes after their two claims. One, their first claim, it will result in use of less pesticide. The reality is that instead of spraying pesticides onto the plants will contain them in every single cell. The result is that the pesticide will end up in the bodies of the people who eat the cabbage. Assertion number two, it's completely safe. You hear this with vaccines. They're safe and effective. Vaccines are always safe and effective. The scorpion venom has been modified so it won't hurt humans. She said that isn't quite true. What they've done is select a section of the genome that codes for a toxin called AAIT, which is known to be poisonous to insects. And then they say the study purports to show that it does no harm to humans. Well, not exactly. The testing was not done on humans. It was not performed on live people, nor was it performed on normal healthy cells. It was tested on MCF-7 breast cancer cells, not exactly normal human cells. But that's okay, right? I mean, you can trust Big Agra in the FDA. The legacy of Roundup Ready glyphosate-resistant crops has been superweeds that are not only resistant to glyphosate, but grow much bigger and faster than the original weeds. And she concludes, perhaps ultimately it will be the frequencies themselves that destroy agribusiness. They're locked into a system that is proving not to work. The real question then is whether they will destroy the earth and us before they've destroyed themselves. Excellent article. We need more people to do just simple investigations like this, just looking at the studies, seeing where, they say it's completely safe for humans, but we never even tested it with humans. We've never even had humans eat it. We just tested it on breast cancer cells. Well, that's a lot different than a human, as far as I know. I mean, I don't feel like a breast cancer cell, and I feel like a human. But I'm not going to be trying any of this scorpion cabbage. Doesn't sound too appetizing to me. Our final story today, 97% opposed of TSA body scanners. I guess this goes in the no-duh category. This is from Steve Watson. TSA completes enforced public comment period of rollout of invasive technology. Jonathan Corbett, an engineer who filmed himself passing through the scanners with metal objects in his pockets, we've had him on the show a couple times, reports that from his analysis of the most recent 100 comments on the TSA's website, 97% were opposed, with just 2% in favor and 1% appearing not to take a position on either side. At least 20 people mentioned me by name, a handful of others mentioned my blog or my video, and at least one likely TSA out of our pants reader took my suggestion and simply told the TSA they suck, Corbett writes. And you can go back and search through prisonplanet.tv. You can search our archives and find interviews that we did with Jonathan Corbett where he actually shows you how he made the little vest pocket that he put the metal object in, that he walked through the scanners. It did not detect the object. He knew it wouldn't, and he's also done numerous other studies. He's even filed a lawsuit against the TSA for what they are doing to us out there, which is treating us like common criminals. And as we just showed you, the CIA and elements in our American government are financing Al-Qaeda, which they tell us the reason we have the TSA is to protect us from Al-Qaeda. That's why they have to look for Al-Qaeda in your pants. Our final piece here is the quote of the day from Victor Hugo. Perseverance is the secret of all triumphs. And that is from Victor Hugo. Last Wednesday I did the news and I said, hey, we're going to release a bunch of the finalists on this date, Wednesday, June 26th. Well, after I made that announcement, that bold announcement, David Knight came up to me and said, Rob, we have 650 entries, and I've gone through about 400 of them. And I said, wow. First of all, you went through 400 entries. That is a ton of entries. And, I mean, I've seen so many good ones. We have since divided up the stack into increments of 10, passed them out to all the reporters, and we're getting all the reporters to go through these last few remaining entries. What I want to show you is one that I went through in my list, and this is from a filmmaker named Micah Ehlers. The title of it's Operation Paul Revere, Infowars.com. Micah Ehlers, that's what he put in his title. I think he should come up with a better name. Like Man Awakens from the Hamster Wheel of Doom, or the New World Order Hamster Wheel. I thought his use of imagery reminded me of Brazil and a lot of other Terry Gilliam films. It was definitely lower budget than those, but I thought his use of his budget and his resources was really outstanding. His visual use was good. I mean, very creepy film, the way he describes the New World Order and the way he uses his filmmaking talents along with his other crew. They did a great job. I'm not saying this is in the finals, but this is one I wanted to share with you, and we'll have the address underneath there where you can go watch the rest of it, because we're only going to show you a portion of it. Also, send us your favorite video. Just send us one link to a video that you think is your favorite to Paul Revere. It's Paul Revere at Infowars.com. Just want to make sure it wasn't Paul Revere contest. We are going to take that into account as we put out the finalists, I guess. We're going to put out more of a all-encompassing list here. It won't have every single entry, but it'll have the ones that we think are really good. And we're going to be releasing these throughout the next few months of greater ones. We will have a winner by the end of July. But we're going to put these out and then slowly whittle down the list. And you'll be able to provide your input there through comments and such at on Infowars.com. And I will let you know as soon as that is released. But in lieu of releasing that today, I did want to show you this one film, Man Awakens, from the New World Order Hamster Wheel. We're going to go to break. We'll be back with an interview from filmmaker Kevin Booth talking about his newest documentary, American Drug War II, Cannabis Destiny. And we'll be right back after this short break. And don't forget to become a member of PrisonPlanet.tv if you haven't already done so. It's very easy to do. You go to PrisonPlanet.tv, you sign up, get a username and password, you get a 15-day free trial, and it's only $5.95 a month, and you can share your username and passcode with up to 11 other people. I've had 15-day free trial on my mind right there. So it's with 11 other people. So you can share your username and password, all get on, watch the movies, watch the specials. We're going to be producing a lot more here in the future at PrisonPlanet.tv, and we thank you for your support. And we go now to Micah Ehlers and the Man Awakens from the New World Order Hamster Wheel.
Paul, it's time to be even more productive. And where's my boy's salutation?
Good morning. I love you.
Oh, that's my handsome boy. I've noticed you haven't really been eating or drinking much lately. Don't you want to grow up big and strong like your neighbors? How else are you going to get your fluoride and additives? I'm worried about your health. Everyone should eat extra healthy today because the Horn Queen Harlot is planning another attack. We thought we had her finished off, but as you can see, we are all still breathing the smoke from the burning remnants of her arson. She would destroy us all if she could. She hates us for our freedoms. We must all give everything we have before we no longer have the privilege to. We will do everything we can to keep the momentum going because we love you, and everyone will be remembered for their efforts when we live in a better time. So, Paul, what is bothering you exactly?
I had another nightmare. This one was more clear than the last.
Now you can watch Alex Jones live at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
You can also browse the network, the Infowars Nightly News,
and over 60 movies and documentaries all together in one place.
You can watch the Alex Jones radio show live as it happened.
So check it out, Infowars.com/show.
Are we choosing our own paths, our own destiny, or has it been pre-selected for us?
C.S. Lewis said, when training beats education, civilization dies.
We need to always be cognizant of, as a free society, that information can be used as a weapon.
Barrier to discovery is not ignorance. It's the illusion of knowledge.
We are seen as nothing but biological androids.
To gain control of education in America, not for a philanthropic purpose, but to change the thinking of the American people.
From the time we're very young, we're taught to, worship authority basically because that's our key to survival as young children.
Discover the history, the present, and the future of mind control. From compulsory state education to the Hollywood media brainwashing machine, we are kept in perpetual bondage to the ideas that shape our actions.
And the CIA scientists could actually film people who had been surreptitiously dosed with LSD.
There's a brain entrainment process that takes place.
That gives the government free rein to create whatever story or narrative it wants to create.
Whatever the public face of something is, whatever they're talking about publicly, there's something else over here they're probably not looking at.
How to engineer the opinion of the American people so that they would fully endorse, not only endorse, but demand a war.
When you watch mainline establishment television, you are putting yourself in front of the barrel of a gun. Discover the history, the present, and the future of mind control, psychological warfare, brainwashing. Are we controlled and manipulated? You bet.
That's mind control par excellence.
Find out how deep the rabbit hole really goes with this new groundbreaking documentary film, State of Mind. Available exclusively at Infowars.com.
The important thing about the Pro One filter today is that the material we use for removing fluoride and other heavy metals now will remove the latest form of fluoride called hydrofluorosilicic acid. There's no other fluoride reduction filter out there that will remove that type of fluoride. And it's extremely important because today we're hearing more and more cities are using that form of fluoride.
We've been having medication forced on us through the water system for quite a while. Most people don't realize it. Most people don't realize the negative effects of fluoride.
There's a wide range of health effects that are attributed to fluoride.
Bottom line, why should somebody get this new Pro One ProPure filter?
The reason to buy the Pro One, it's an all-in-one filter. It's convenient, easy to use. It doesn't require the add-on fluoride filter. And in addition, this filter removes the latest form of fluoride called hydrofluorosilicic acid.
Welcome back to the Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Rob Dew. Our next guest has spent the better half of this past decade making 3 documentaries now on a plant. That's right. Our next guest is Kevin Booth. He's a filmmaker originally from Austin, Texas. I met him many years ago, and you may have seen American Drug War. Alex was in that one. We used to sell it here. In fact, we still sell it here at the Infowars store. And then How We'd Won the West, which we also sold here at the Infowars store. And now he's back with American Drug War 2 that is just now going into its release stages. And he's here to tell us all about that. We're going to play some clips. Very interesting film, a lot different than the first one, but also some same themes still going through it. We turn now to Kevin Booth. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Doing really good. How's it going back there in Austin? I miss you guys. I miss the whole info crew.
Oh yeah, it's doing great. We're humming along. We got a new studio we're actually building, and things are really humming along. And you are taking that iconic Iwo Jima photograph, having the guys planting a pot leaf in the ground, and coming out with American Drug War 2, Cannabis Destiny. Why don't you tell us about it? Tell us a little bit about the film. What is different in this one than the previous, the first American Drug War?
Well, the first American drug war is not really focused around marijuana so much as the drug war from A to Z. I intended for the first American drug war not to really have a sequel when I made it. I thought that was going to be a one-time deal, so it was not made with the intentions of doing any type of a follow-up. So the first American drug war is basically covers everything from the crack epidemic, and we focus in on a guy named Freeway Ricky Ross, who I know has been a guest on Alex's show, who I've helped get out of prison in 2009, who's been accused of creating the crack epidemic, and it was found out that all of his cocaine was coming from a CIA connection, and it was all tied back into Iran-Contra, and Sally Castillo, another guest that you've had on many times, is connected with that story. We go into talking about the crystal meth epidemic. We go into private prisons. We visit Joe Arpaio in Phoenix, Arizona. We visited Tommy Chong while he was serving time in a privately owned prison for selling glass, not for selling marijuana, but for having his face on glass products that he was set up for, that his son was selling over the internet. And we touch upon medical marijuana, but it was more just about how the money flows and just basically the whole scam of the drug war taking place in America that most people really have forgotten about that's going on, and how this is really the longest running, most costly war in American history, and focusing on the aspect that there never really will be any type of liberty as long as the government can control what we put into our own bodies.
Exactly. And going back with Tommy Chong, he was set up by the government. They had actually sent an informant in to ship the glass out to a state that couldn't get it. I think it was Pennsylvania.
Right.
So they got him for that, which he didn't even commit the crime. And what was he doing? He was selling glass. And then this whole drug war thing, I remember in the 80s, you were growing up in the 80s, a little older than me, but you remember those ads, you know, Nancy Reagan sitting there, say no to drugs, this is your brain on drugs. That was where the PR campaign really kicked into high gear, because they saw people were using drugs as a form of alternative consciousness. And once you go there into that realm, well, then you start questioning other things. If they're telling me drugs are bad, but I take a few, or I may smoke a little pot or do something else, you know, some hard drugs are bad, but there's a lot out there that's not as bad as they say it is, and they overblow that. And what's it for? It is to fill up prisons. It is to get people into the system. It is to take away your freedom. It has nothing to do with the drug or how it affects your body. We know that. The government doesn't care about how we are and how our health is. You know, that's why they're trying to shove the insurance companies down our throat.
It's pretty obvious. Yeah, I mean, with Tommy Chong, it was no irony that they called it Operation Pipe Dream, named after a Cheech and Chong movie. They actually went as far as to plant a phony employee in his company. They had a really successful glass blowing company out here on the West Coast selling glass products all over the United States. And like you said, they placed an order in a county in Pennsylvania where it's illegal to ship glass products or any kind of head shop type products into. And everybody at the company refused to ship the order, and so the DEA actually had to plant a phony employee into their company in order to fulfill the order. And so, you know, even on the most basic level, Tommy Chong or his son never really did anything wrong. They were even respecting like the ridiculous laws of this one county in Pennsylvania, and they had to be completely tricked. You can't even call it tricking. It's just, you know, it was just a setup.
It was a setup,
straight across, but it's not even a trick. In order to capture Tommy and put him in jail to make a big spectacle out of it. And this is, you know, this is in the days of John Ashcroft and following 9/11 and all the hoopla of, you know, if you buy drugs, you support terrorism, and their continued advance. And where they really got stupid is trying to keep marijuana in the same category with crack cocaine and PCP and crystal meth. And, you know, if they hadn't done that, maybe they would have gotten away with this drug war scam. But the fact that they've continuously tried to group marijuana in with these scourge drugs, it just didn't work. And the people never bought it, and the people aren't buying it, and the people are waking up. And not only has the people woken up, but it's gone so far now is that people are not only realizing that marijuana is not bad for you, but that it's actually really good for you on many levels. And I'm not talking about kids should be out there getting stoned every day. I'm talking about new scientific research being done, finding out that higher levels of cannabinoids in our body acts as a natural antidepressant, neuroprotectant, anti-inflammatory, and actually can help kill cancer cells in many cases, and that's where the new film takes us into the future. And the new film is not at all about getting stoned or, you know, hanging out and smoking giant bong hits all night. There's nothing wrong with that. We're all for it if that's what you want to do. But this new film is more about the leading edge, medical, cutting edge battle out there of companies trying to get various aspects of marijuana through the FDA process.
Right, and I like how you take that iconic image of the I think it was 4 or 5 Marines planting that flag in Iwo Jima, one of which died as an alcoholic in a ditch. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know. No, I did not know
Hayes. That was there's a Johnny Cash song called "Drunken Ira Hayes," or the Ballad of Ira Hayes.
Oh my God!
And he was an American Indian who went off to war, fought. He was one of the guys raising that flag, and then he comes back home and starts drinking heavily, and he ends up dying in a ditch. So you've got that iconic image, and the image that they were trying to say is this is freedom right here. And what you've got, you've taken that image and kind of repossessed it, of them planting the weed plant in there, the cannabis plant into the ground, saying this is freedom. This is how this plant here could literally change the way we do things in our country, and not just talk about smoking it. And when you talk about hemp, you go into all the different things that hemp can be made into. Oil, you know, get diesel oil. I think it was the guy who invented the diesel engine wanted to run it on hemp oil.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize is that America is the only industrialized country on planet Earth that does not allow farmers to grow hemp. Now, I heard that's just recently changing, or there's some law that just changed in Kentucky since we actually put the movie out, ironically, or that would have been in there. But companies, we profile a company in the movie called Dr. Bronner's Magical Soap Company, and they have to buy literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not almost $1 million worth of hemp seed oil from Canadian companies, and other companies in America are having to get their hemp products from Chinese companies. So farmers in Canada and even China are making huge money growing hemp, while American companies can produce and sell hemp-based products. They're not allowed to grow it. And so China is actually racing way ahead. So this has nothing to do with drugs or getting high. Hemp has absolutely no psychoactive properties to it. And if this has nothing to do with drugs or getting high, but any like freedom-loving American that's mad about what's happening in our society should be outraged by the fact that our government is allowing China to race ahead of us in this whole hemp revolution that's taking place globally.
And even if you're not a freedom-loving American, even if you're a crotchety old Fox News watching conservative, do you want to pay to put hippies in jail and give them 3 meals a day? Do you want that coming out of your taxes? That's my message to those people, because you're either for freedom or you're for lower taxes, and you know that whole surveillance state that we basically fund every day, every time we pay our taxes, every year. We fund putting people in prison, giving them 3 meals a day, paying somebody to watch them, paying for the walls to be built around them. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And these private prison companies and the unions and the police unions, like, well, we're going to go to a clip that talks about this in a second, how they're all vested in this drug war. They need this drug war to create these positions that don't produce anything of value other than keeping people surveilled and controlled.
And you talk about these crotchety old people, and the irony is that really the more and more you watch Fox News these days, they are having more pro-marijuana stories on, and more conservative people, even like some of my very highly conservative cousins who live in the Bible Belt, who have been very anti-marijuana my whole life, are finally coming around and seeing the devastation that taking, 10 Motrin a day can do to grandma, or taking, like 10 Tylenols a day does to grandpa, or his arthritis medication or whatever, and realizing that there's alternatives out there. And these alternatives aren't some new wacky new age concept. These alternatives were what everybody was using less than 100 years ago. That was in every single doctor's little black kit less than 100 years ago, until John D. Rockefeller came through and shifted the entire paradigm of the American pharmacopoeia into petroleum-based, away from plant-based.
Exactly. And in fact, let's go to that clip first. You sent us some clips, some exclusive clips from the film American Drug War II, Cannabis Destiny, and this first one's about a young boy named Cash Hyde. who had cancer. His parents were watching him die. His mom was a nurse, and the chemo wasn't helping. All the things that the Rockefeller-educated doctors couldn't help their son. So what they started doing was secretly injecting him with hemp oil. And do you have anything else to add before we go to this clip?
Well, this is a very potent cannabis oil that has been reinvented by a man named Rick Simpson in Canada, and he's become very famous on the internet. If you search Phoenix Tears or Rick Simpson oil, and this guy in Canada several years ago created this by upping an old recipe for cannabis oil. It does have a lot of THC, and it's a very high dose of THC. And I need to add in there that our own government applied for the patent and obtained the patent for this in 2003. So for anybody out there rolling their eyes, a conspiracy stoner, just search it. The government got the patent on this. So while the government is still arresting 800,000 people a year, they're working on the medical basics of this. So it's all just a scam. And so this is about the cannabis oil that's curing cancer all over the world.
All right, we're going to go now to this clip, and we got a lot more to show you, so just stay tuned for that.
Without a single reported overdose death to this day, the worry of having dangerous drug interactions with cannabis is far less than with any other conventional drug.
Parents call me all the time and say, God, Mike, where do I start at? I say, you start with putting the oil in the kid. Just get it in them and go from there. And you're giving these patients a neurological medicine. If you look at who's studying cannabis oil, it's neuroscientists every time. It's neurologically a godsend. They can't replicate it. They're amazed by it. So when you start giving a patient this medicine, you're going to notice eye movement changes. You're going to notice drowsiness. You're going to notice cotton mouth. You're going to notice, hunger stimulation. You're going to notice all this stuff, and it's all good.
2 years ago, little Cash Hyde was diagnosed with stage 4 brain cancer. He endured bouts of chemo that made him sick, made him ill. He didn't eat for 40 days and was vomiting severely. As his parents watched helplessly, as many have, they made a crucial decision. They asked doctors to take Cash off his anti-nausea and his pain medication and secretly gave him marijuana oil, cannabis oil made from marijuana. What they did was illegal. In addition, they didn't tell his doctors. Today, 3-year-old Cash is in remission and doing well. Callie, let me talk to you. You're an RN, right?
Yeah, this is Callie.
Callie. Okay. Callie, do you understand my concerns about people coming into the hospital and just administering substances, illicit or illicit, without the team's involvement? You know what I mean? If you worked in hospitals, it can really make things unravel if the team is not there taking care of the patient.
I do understand the controversy with, coming in and giving our son, cannabis. But, he was laying there dying, shaking, shivering. His skin was peeling. He was vomiting every 2 hours. He was vomiting. He couldn't.
Let me ask the question, Callie. I get it. Let me ask the question a different way. Let's say you had medication XYZ and it's legal, and you describe that same scene to us. You just bring that in from the outside and give it because you wanted your child better no matter what. You go to any length, even if it means upsetting how a hospital functions. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Hold on one second. Bob, you've been sitting here listening to this.
Doctors are, they're killing our children.
Hold on.
The most therapeutic.
We weren't there. Listen, people are trying to do their job and trying to. The child is better because of proton beam and chemotherapy. We know that too because that's what they could expect. Yes, and all this other stuff made him sick.
Wow. There you have Dr. Drew, who goes around trying to help people with his therapy and basically apologizing for the doctors, saying, hey, no. Hemp or this cannabis oil did not help your son. It was the chemotherapy. It was the photon radiation that we shot him with that helped him. As he was laying there dying, the parents switched it secretly, didn't tell the hospital, and he was more concerned with hospital procedure than he was with the health of their son. Isn't that disgusting?
It's like, oh my God, what will happen if people actually try to save their own loved ones? It's the idea, and I've had plenty of loved ones die in the hospital before, and there really is this sense of when you have this one day where some doctor who barely speaks English, I hate to say that, comes in there and basically, well, your mom's going to die. And you're going, well, what can we do? Da, da, da. And they're just like, it's out of our hands. It's in God's hands now. Well, that's great. But still, you know, what can we do? And we're really just taught to accept that when the man with the white lab coat walks in there and tells you that so-and-so is going to pass away, there's nothing we can do about that. You're just supposed to accept that. And if you don't accept that, then you're some sort of a kook, and it's disrespectful, and, you know, and now you're going off on some new agey tangent here. Except now in this instance, a little boy pulls out of a coma and starts eating again, and of course they have to say it's some sort of a miracle from all their prayers. They will not admit that cannabis had anything to do with it.
It was the insecticide we injected into him what cured him. I mean, if people just want to look up what chemotherapy is, I mean, and you know, I had a friend who died from cancer back in 2009, and they couldn't get the hemp oil legally here like you can in California, and her boyfriend had to make it and give it to her, and she was also doing chemotherapy, and she didn't make it. But I think had she been able to get a steady supply and start the treatment earlier, they kind of waited till after the chemotherapy started to do this, maybe she would still be around today. I mean, it's really sad to see people out there across the country who are dying from cancer and can't get access to alternative treatments other than, you know, photon radiation or chemotherapy or, you know, any other weird drug that they want to make that would basically kill. It basically kills you. You know, what more is there to say about that? And it's important to note that the chemotherapies that they inject into the cash, and most people are drugs that were patented back in the 60s and 70s, and so they don't even have like new. You know, if I was going to get chemotherapy, I'd want to think that they're going to walk in there going like, hey, this is like something they just invented a year ago. That's this top leading thing from all these years of research. And where does all this money from all this so-called cancer research going when they're using chemotherapy that the same exact chemicals from the 70s? So where's all this research money going? It's crazy. You know, the one thing I wanted to say is that, and I understand what you're saying, but there are a lot of people in the marijuana movement would call you out on the difference between saying hemp or cannabis. Really, when you say hemp, you're talking about the non-psychoactive cousin that people are using for the fiber and the fuel and all that. And then cannabis represents, you know, the psychoactive THC, CBD cousin of that. Now, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that will have like a big hissy fit over these little things. Let me clear it up real quick. We wrote the Declaration of Independence on hemp. Cheech and Chong smoke cannabis. Right? Is that it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I got it. All right. Well, hey, let's go to another clip. This is talking about how the strength in the pot from the 60s and 70s is not what people are smoking now. It has been engineered by growers mainly to just make people get higher off of it instead of all these other things that hemp can do cannabis can do other than just get high, you know, the other medical treatments, the other psychoactive treatments. But what we're seeing is basically a funnel effect from people just wanting to get high. This is the market for it, so people are engineering it to make you more high.
The old saying, don't mess with Mother Nature, has never been truer because due to the government's misguided attempt at prohibiting mankind to plant, nature ironically made the plant stronger than ever. However, because of years of prohibition, breeders have only sought to increase THC levels in order to fulfill the sole black market need of getting people stoned, thereby ignoring all other potential compounds.
This is not your Woodstock weed. The marijuana of today is between 5 and 6 times or more potent than the marijuana of maybe my parents' generation. We're still trying to figure out why more people are going to treatment. Non-criminal justice referrals to treatment. In other words, on their own, themselves or their family member told a counselor that the reason they are in treatment is because of marijuana.
I mean, I work at San Francisco General for 30 years, and every day I admit patients who are ravaged by abusive substances. Crack cocaine, heroin, tobacco, alcohol, sugar, you know. I never have admitted a patient in my life with a marijuana excess problem.
what science clearly shows, and what most people certainly know who use cannabis, is that you take enough to achieve a certain level and not more. It's not like cocaine where you just keep doing it because you become a fiend. You're looking to change your body's biochemistry in a way that you feel is beneficial, and which science basically shows is beneficial because of its anti-aging properties. So when someone is using stronger cannabis, if they're smoking it, that means they smoke less, which is actually better.
Unlike opiates, where there are receptors on the brainstem that is the part of the body where regulates respiration and breathing, there are no cannabinoid receptors on the brainstem, so you can't really suppress your breathing to the point where you're going to kill yourself.
Recently, researchers have uncovered ancient strains in Spain that contain several highly beneficial cannabinoids that were almost driven extinct due to the common black market THC cannabis.
I'd be very curious as to what the profile of this plant was after 34 million years of evolution.
So, Kevin, after putting this movie together, I mean, what do you think? What are the other, I guess, benefits of cannabis other than getting high? What and using it, you know, to cure you from cancer? You know, what else can it do?
Well, I mean, basically, our government has acquired the patent for it as an anti-inflammatory and a neuroprotectant, and it basically, a lot of people out there that are in the know in this movement, a lot of these doctors I know are now just ingesting a certain amount of cannabinoids every day, just as the ultimate health preventative. No different than taking fish oil tablets every day or anything else. It's just a health preventative. And our very own government is recommending a dose as high as 600 milligrams a day of this, which, if you were going to break that down into stoner terms, you'd have to smoke something like 60 joints a day of super powerful marijuana in order to achieve that level, which obviously no one's going to do. And the thing is that most people, okay, there are a lot of kids out there that just want to get high. That's fine, just like anything else. Just like when prohibition of alcohol ended, a lot of people just wanted to get drunk, and they got drunk no matter whether it was against the law or not. That's beside the point. It's beside the point in this whole argument. There's a lot of people out there that want to be clear-headed. You know, I myself, I'm getting older. I don't really like being stoned anymore. It does make me a little paranoid. It makes me too introspective. I mean, maybe occasionally once a month at a party or something like that. Yes, but on a day-to-day basis, knowing that this can actually help with aging, this helps like keep cancer from happening. I mean, they did an incredible study out there, Dr. Tashkin, with over 50,000 people that they studied over 10 years into 3 groups. Group number 1 smoked cigarettes. Group number 2 smoked only marijuana. Group number 3 smoked nothing. This is 50,000 people over 10 years. Pretty healthy study. Well, as it turns out, the people that smoked nothing had a higher cancer rate than the people that smoked only marijuana. And what this study showed is that the people that smoked marijuana had a lower cancer rate than the cigarette smokers and the non-smokers, period, proving that having a raised cannabinoid level in your blood is actually beneficial to you. Now, once again, this isn't saying we want people out there and kids to go get stoned. Nobody thinks kids should smoke. I don't think kids should smoke anything. I think smoking is bad for you. Inhaling, burning things in your lungs is bad for you. But what we're trying to show in this film is that there's a lot of other ways to consume the plant, and really burning the plant is just the man-made construct. We go into this whole chapter about how people are now juicing the plant here in California. And, you know, you got to leave it to California to always come up with the wacky trends. And so people juicing the marijuana plant, well, most people would see that and go, oh, my God, it must make you crazy high. Well, the truth is that it doesn't. It's like drinking wheatgrass juice. And you have to burn the plant. You have to heat the plant in order for it to make you high. And that the plant is just a vegetable. If you treat the cannabis plant as a vegetable, it actually doesn't make you high, crazy enough. If you just took a fresh bud and just ate it, it really doesn't make you that high.
And what's crazy is we could grow this in our backyards. We could grow this on our rooftops. We could grow this anywhere. It grows like a weed, literally.
Yeah, and basically, and what we're trying to show in that last clip is like one of the, you know, it's funny as we hear the death rattle of the prohibitionists, like, you know, coming around. It was like the one of the last death rattles that they've finally given up on was the whole gateway theory. That was like, you know, if you smoke marijuana, it leads to harder drugs. Well, so many people have disproven that alcohol is the true gateway drug.
Hey, if you drink water, it could lead to doing harder drugs. Do you know that?
Yeah, no, and what's ironic about that is my older brother Kurt, who is 9 years older than me, is a schizophrenic. He died from a seizure, but he actually had a very rare disease called polydipsia, and he actually did overdose from drinking too much water. Very, very rare thing. Look it up, polydipsia. So it's crazy. So, but this whole argument now since the whole gateway theory, they've given up on the gateway theory. Now the one that the prohibitionists are still fighting with is that this new marijuana out there, this isn't your parents' Woodstock marijuana anymore. This new marijuana is very powerful. It's like tripping on acid. It's very dangerous, and that's why it should be against the law, and you should be very concerned. And they're trying to like throw this scare out there. So because we have all these like kind of people from the 60s that are now getting older now, and they're kind of going, yeah, marijuana's not so bad. I don't know if my kids like take a few hits of that. Well, they're trying to scare all those people into going, well, but this isn't the pot you smoke. This is this new dangerous thing. And you talk to people that actually they used to smoke pot back in the 60s and 70s, and they really do. They believe it. They believe the propaganda of, well, I've heard this new marijuana is just, so powerful. It's like horse tranquilizers and stuff. Like, no, it's not. It really, and the truth of the matter is that if you believe smoking something is bad for you, which is the basic argument here, that the smoking is what's bad for you, that the stronger it is, the less you smoke. And so it's really no different than the difference between buying a light beer versus Everclear. And why should we outlaw alcohol because now you can buy Everclear or moonshine that's a higher, that it doesn't make any sense. It's like that's their argument because now there's stronger forms. It's just another ridiculous last gasp of these people trying to keep this thing going.
It's another mind control tactic that they're using. The same thing as, if you buy pot, you're funding terrorism. When you look at it, basically, when you buy pot, you're funding the U.S. government who ships it in. And in fact, the next clip we're going to go to, you have a clip in here. It's called Funding the Cartels. And this has to do with one of the pilots you interviewed who says, hey, I flew 800 pounds. Where did that 100 pounds go? And they go, oh, we call that leakage.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So you're about to learn what leakage is, people out there. This is how the drugs get to the streets. And it's not Freeway Ricky Ross carting it in with his armada of planes and ships. No, and building underground tunnels. No, he's not doing it. It's other people bringing it in, and the ones that get it through are the ones that have the blessing from the government. We go now to that clip.
There are only 3 groups of which I'm aware that are very interested in keeping marijuana illegal. They're the police, and a lot of people know about them. And that tends to take the form of chiefs of police, police unions trying to hold on to overtime pay, prisons, private prison industry. The other is cartels, because cartels make 70% of their profits from marijuana sales alone.
I was lucky enough to cross the bridge into Juarez with veteran journalists Brett and Craig Renault, who report for the New York Times.
The battle between the police and the cartels is really heated up, and the cartels are saying they're going to kill 1 police officer every day. And in the last month and a half, they have killed about 19 local police officers here, and just last night in this area, 2 more were killed.
The brutally poor circumstances of Juarez make many of the children perfect marks for cartel recruitment.
If you don't want to go into the cartel, they won't force you. They like for you to go by yourself. Because if they force you, you can go and tell the police, and they will help you sometimes. But if you go by yourself, they will ask you to do anything and you will do it.
And they give you a transponder number to squawk that's a little off the norm. And so when the ATC, Air Traffic Control, sees you going across the border, they go, oh, that guy's with the cops, and they call off everybody, and they let us go. And that's how a lot of drugs came in. Like the 800 and almost 50 pounds of cocaine that I flew turned into 750 pounds. And I asked the guy that was in charge of the cops, what happened to that 100 pounds? And he only told me, he said, oh, that's leakage. Leakage? And he says, yeah. What we do is we take a little bit off the top, we can sell it and arrest the guys, or we can sell it and see where it goes, and track it. Like I said, walk, kind of like Fast and Furious. Same thing.
All right, so now you know what leakage is out there. It's not just something that happens to you personally when you're going to the bathroom. It's actually a term the cops use when they take a little bit off the top, a little bit more for Santa Claus, a little bit more for Santa Claus, if you catch my drift with the Cheech and Chong reference. So talk a little bit, you went to Juarez actually, and
yes.
They're killing cops there. It's basically creating, the prohibition in the United States is creating the problem there, the problems that we see.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane. And the focus of American Drug War II is really about how the drug war is affecting children. And it takes a much more personal look than the first drug war film. And it's not like you don't need to watch the first drug war film to watch the second one. It's not a sequel based on that type of an idea. They both sit independently of each other. And the one thing we wanted to show, well, the two things actually, is one, how all the Mexican marijuana now is mostly flooding in through Texas and Arizona, because in California, who's going to buy Mexican marijuana? There's no reason. There's so much good marijuana in California that all the billions of dollars of marijuana coming up through Mexico is now funneling through Texas and places like Juarez and creating this war zone there. And they're saying that as much as 70% of the cartel's profit is still from marijuana. Now, the people arguing this will say, well, if we take marijuana away from them, they're just going to do something else. And that they say that we have a defeatist attitude by wanting to legalize drugs. So you want to talk about a defeatist attitude by saying, like, if we take marijuana from the cartels, they're just going to shift to something else? That's defeatist, in my opinion. Like, let them shift to something else. Why does it have to be marijuana? Oh, because that's what helps you guys, obviously.
Right.
But the focus is that we're showing that there's neighborhoods in Juarez, Mexico, where you can go, and I could go there, and I could recruit a little 14-year-old boy to kill you for as little as $40. And that's just no different than going to the Home Depot and hiring someone to come, on your yard for the day or anything like that. You can go and hire kids to commit murder for $40 a pop in this neighborhood that we went to.
And it's because of the prohibition that we have. I mean, that's a result of it.
Yeah, it's just all an endless turf war. That's all it is. I mean, basically Juarez is just no different than a giant FedEx. It's like FedEx versus UPS shipping route, and that's just one of the corridors that all of these shipping companies are fighting to keep control over. And so it's all about just, killing each other's enemies and killing off the competition. If American corporations were allowed to kill people, I guess they already do, but if they were able to, just like they would, hire little Mexican kids to do it for $40 a pop, it'd be a lot cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And the
we
other
outsource to Mexico anyway. Why not?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And the other thing we talk about too in that clip was this thing called Gringo Pass, which I think is a great name for that. That could be a focus of an entire film on its own, with the pilot Greg Yoakum, who flew for the cartels. And I think it's just so fascinating to know that that's basically how they worked it. They would just give the pilots a transponder number and a route, and just say, follow this route, use this transponder number, and you're gonna be just fine. And of course they will, and that's how they control the whole deal.
Yeah, that is sick. The way our country has turned it in, and it's the black ops version of our country, has turned it into a profit center to fund their operations. It's really disgusting. I mean, we almost got to some of that in the 80s with Iran-Contra, but I don't think we ever are really going to get the full story. People like Gary Webb have been killed trying to tell that story. And Sully Castillo's been harassed telling that story. I've read his book, Powder Burns. I mean, incredible. The amount of manpower and money we would spend going down there, terrorizing farmers and just, peasant people who weren't part of this drug thing. They were just growing a crop. And then you see our troops going in Afghanistan and protecting the farmers there, bringing them fertilizer, bringing them seeds, and protecting these shipments. And, they go, well, it grinds on our gut, but it's just something we have to do. I mean, Geraldo's done specials on this. And at the end of the day, who's left holding the bag? It's the guy buying it from the dealer on the street who gets popped and gets thrown into the system and becomes a cog in that wheel. I want to go to one more clip. And this has to do with your first foster daughter, Stephanie. And, this is kind of where the film takes a turn. You go from talking about cannabis to these pharmaceutical drugs and how they're being prescribed to these kids that are in foster care, because when you prescribe them, you get more money. So let's go to that clip now.
A new report by our own government's Office of Accountability shows that children in foster care are 13 times more likely to be prescribed mind-altering drugs.
We don't drug our children. We raise our children and nurture them and take care of them. But the institutions that they end up in do it just to keep the logjam from getting worse, you know.
Recently on Ventura Boulevard in Encino, California, the favorite gathering place of many children was closed to make room for yet another pharmacy in a neighborhood that already had over 25 of them.
Dozens of residents held a loud protest today outside a San Fernando Valley bookstore.
We need a bookstore, not another drugstore.
They're angry the Barnes & Noble on Ventura Boulevard in Encino is slated to close. The nation's largest bookseller will shut down the location at the end of the year. Officials say the company is closing several locations as it reevaluates its business model. A CVS drugstore has already leased the space for next year.
We do not need another pharmacy. We have pharmacy right over there, a pharmacy right over there, and over 20 within a 2-mile radius. And we've lost our bookstore, our community gathering place.
Back at home, we enrolled our foster daughter Stephanie into the local junior high. My wife worked with her counselors and psychiatrists to get her doses of Adderall and the antidepressants lowered. As hard as it was for us to admit, we could see her ability to focus waning as we decreased the Adderall doses.
Turn her down, honey. I'm off the drugs, back with my mom, and we're ready to start our new path.
Your new life. And we're still friends, and we're like a second family.
Yes.
So
together like a family. Kind of makes me sad for the kids because they have to take these drugs, and the people that make them, I just don't like those people because I had to use their drugs. And the Adderall was also supposed to be helping me in school to do my work and focus, but before the Adderall, I always focused.
So before we get into talking about Stephanie and your new foster daughter, Brittany, I just want to mention that American Drug War 2 Cannabis Destiny is available on iTunes for download and viewing, and also on Amazon for viewing. So you can go out there and you can watch the whole film, not just catch these parts, and maybe get it in front of that crotchety old conservative in your family, or that, you know, left-leaning liberal who thinks drugs are bad too. You know, get it in front of people who think especially cannabis, is bad for you, and let's start breaking through that wall, because that's the only way it's going to do it, through person-to-person action, and it'll be soon out on DVD. And you're also doing a little tour going around talking to people.
Yeah, I mean, I lecture at universities, been doing it for years, ever since the first film came out. But we just on June 6th, we were in theaters in 17 cities all in the same night, and that's how we rolled it out. And we're working through a company called Gravitas with Warner Brothers is behind it. And so if you go to my one website, AmericanDrugWar2.com or AmericanDrugWar.com, you'll find it. There's a list. It's iTunes, Amazon, it's on PlayStation, it's on all these other VOD things, and soon it'll be on every VOD, you know, just on your basic cable too, Cox Cable, all the different cable systems. You'll be able to find it on your regular video on demand system there. But I just want to tell people, if I could do my one little plug, right now, downloading it on iTunes or Amazon and giving us a little vote rating or writing a little review really helps us in these early stages, because that's what's going to help the bigger promoters and the bigger distributors push this thing and get it in front of more eyes. So even if you've already seen the film, even if you feel like you already know everything in there, you know, help the movement out, you know, download it, review it, and show it to somebody that needs to see it. Like you said, pick the person in your life that's least likely to want to watch this thing, and just get them to sit there and watch it. We've designed a very short, it's only 90 minutes long, it moves really quick, and it's designed to try to change people's minds.
Sit them down with some brownies, give it a high rating. I don't know what else I could throw in there on that. Let's talk about Stephanie.
Okay.
This is your foster daughter. You put her in the film. Very personal issue, obviously, for you. And tell us about the foster system and what it's doing to these kids out there. And now you have a new foster daughter, Brittany, if you want to go into that as well.
Right, our new foster daughter was Andrea. Brittany
Andrea,
was Stephanie's,
okay.
yes.
Oh,
Brittany was Stephanie's sister that was
Okay.
also in the film. Well, my wife and I couldn't have children, and that's a whole other story. So we entered in the foster system, had nothing to do with making this movie. Trust me. I mean, this started long before I started working on this movie, had nothing to do with it. And the movie was over here on this topic and fostering two separate things. This little girl comes to us. We had to go through all these classes and all of this rigmarole to get indoctrinated into the foster system, and of course every single word I've heard Alex Jones say over the years, and all these people coming from Texas, and hearing all the horror stories about Child Protective Services. It's funny because now I am in the belly of the beast. I'm at with all these people. And learning a lot of good people in a bad system. A lot of these people I really, honestly, actually like a lot of these people that are caught up and working in this bad system trying to make a difference. But this young 11-year-old girl comes to our house a couple days before Christmas, and she's just this shy, normal kid, and she's like a completely normal kid. And then all of a sudden comes all these bottles of pills where it's nothing different than give her speed in the morning and tranquilizers at night. And we find out that all the other kids in the same group home where she was staying were on the same exact regimen. So there's 10 kids in one little home, and the more kids you can put in your home, the more money you make. If you're doing, 90% of the foster homes are doing it for the money, which is fine, because there's thousands and thousands of kids that do need homes that do have screwed up parents. It's not all just kids wrongfully being taken away from people. There are a lot of screwed up people out there that, it's a lot of gray area. It's not black and white. But this young girl, to me, didn't seem like she needed medication. Suddenly here we are having to medicate her, or they would take her away from us. And you're learning that these group homes were giving all the kids Adderall, which is speed, at 6 in the morning in order to send them off to school. And then when they get home, they give them dinner, and then they give them all the tranquilizer, and they'd all be into bed by 7 o'clock at night. And this is just a way to make everybody's jobs easier. And with Stephanie's sister, Brittany, she got suddenly diagnosed as being schizophrenic because she got into like some little scuffle with some little girl where she held a girl underwater in the swimming pool, like normal kids play, like I used to do every day.
Yeah.
Like you used to do every single day. I mean, my brother used to practically murder me every day in the swimming pool. And so, of course, she gets, practically put into a straitjacket, hauled off, medicated as being schizophrenic, given like a huge cocktail of crazy drugs, put into some specialty home. And what you learn is that the more problems that can be assigned to a child, in other words, this child has this record, and the more things I can check off, like violent tendencies, like, disruptive, all the more money you make as a foster parent. And not only that, but then the more caseworkers, the more social workers, the more, each one of these kids probably has like a team of 10 to 20 professionals working around them supporting their case. And so if you come in there and you bring these kids into the system and you go, they're just a normal kid, maybe a little depressed because they got taken away from their parent. Like, what kid is not going to be depressed because you take them away from their birth parent? Like, and that's what that's what you learn too. You learn really quick because you go into the foster system thinking that, we got a really nice house and this kid's coming from the ghetto. But you know what? These kids want to be with their birth parents, even if their birth parents live in a cardboard box on Skid Row. They'd rather be with their birth parents. But it's like the system would rather drug them than make that happen. And it's a frightening situation that seems to be getting worse and worse. And when you get into it, it's not so much that the people in the system are like evil people. It's just like we've painted ourselves into a corner as a society, and people are just being forced to act this way to keep the logjam from getting worse and worse. And it's just become it's like it's like laws and rules that are designed 70 years ago that are still affecting kids in the foster system today. And it's a frightening system that needs to be explored more. And maybe I'll even do a film completely focused on the foster system in the future.
Right. Well, bottom line is, it looks like this: the government doesn't care if you're on drugs as long as you're on their drugs.
Absolutely.
If it's their drug that they're promoting and that the Rockefeller Foundation is promoting, that's A-OK. But if it's something that grows out of the ground, that you could grow yourself, that you could self-medicate, you don't need a doctor or a team of of social workers to outline it and regiment it, oh, well, then there's a problem, man.
Yeah, and what they're trying to do with marijuana too is the same thing. Right now, like to me, the biggest danger in this whole movement is that if we allow this situation that's happening right now to go unchecked, pharmaceutical companies are going to tear the cannabis plant down into 20 different pills.
Right.
You know, so you've got a headache, you got to take this spray. You got your back pain, you take this pill. You got menstrual cramps, you do this thing, and on and on and on. And you got to have a medicine cabinet with 20 prescriptions just to equal this one plant, because they've tried to sell society on the idea that there's no such thing as a one-stop cure. It's crazy new age thinking to think that this one plant can cure all these things. You got to have a separate medication for every little ailment.
Wow. Well, we'll leave it at that. This has been a great interview. Kevin Booth, American Drug War II, Cannabis Destiny. You can check it out at AmericanDrugWar2.com. We've been throwing up the website up there, the entire interview. We want people to go out and see it, check it out, and we'll be carrying it here when it comes out on DVD.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys will be the first.
Great.
Absolutely. Infowars, Alex Jones, Rob, we appreciate it so much.
No problem. It's been great interview, and good luck to you on the promotion of this and your future endeavors.
And hopefully I think I'll be on Alex's radio show next week, so I look forward to that.
Sounds good. All right. You have a good day.
All right. You too. Thank you so much.
All right, and that's our show for today. Thanks to Kevin Booth for coming on, and all the great team out there helping us with the news. This has been quite a journey here at Infowars Nightly News. We're about to start in September 1st. We'll be starting our 3rd year of broadcasting, and we've hit some bumps along the way. We've made some improvements. We've changed things around. One thing that really helps is when you become a member of PrisonPlanet.tv, you basically fuel our ship to get us to go to the next level. Really helps us out. It's a $5.95 a month subscription fee. It helps pay for the bandwidth, the reporters, flying people around. It's a 15-day free trial, and you can share your username and password with up to 10 other people. At the same time, you could all be on watching the nightly news, watching the movies, downloading the clips. We have an MP4 download function. You can grab everything that we've made, download it, and put it out on your YouTube channel. Cut these things up, make little mashups. It's all about you out there taking action. That's what we're trying to do, is provide you the tools so you can educate people in your area, because we can't educate everybody from our Central Texas Command Center. And one other way to do that is getting your subscription to this, the Infowars magazine. This is the newest subscription. You are the target of government spying, as if you didn't know that already. And what I really like about this is, check this out right here. We have more free bumper stickers. Now, the bumper stickers are only going to the people who order it from Infowars. We didn't have the funds to put them out in every issue out there, but you can get these. We have another section somewhere over here. There's some square ones, some right there, that have that cool looking logo in there, plus the original Infowars logo. Lots of small ones, lots of big ones. And I just want to go to this little disclaimer here in the back, where it says, let's see, right here, attention patriotic Americans and freedom lovers everywhere, get your bumper stickers. Post these stickers in legal and lawful areas. Post these stickers in legal and lawful areas. Post these stickers in legal and lawful areas. That's what we want you to do with them, but post them anywhere that's legal and lawful. Put them on your friends' cars, put them on your cars, put them on your lockers if you can, put them on your books. Just get them out there. This is the newest issue. There it is. You are the target of government spying, and every issue that we sell out of Infowars has these stickers in them. So be sure you do that. You can sign up for a subscription. You can get a multi-pack. You can sign up to be a distributor, and we send you a stand with your first order so you can put them up in your business. You can even charge for them. If you want to charge $1, $2 for them, it's up to you. We're all free market here. And with that, that's our show. We will see you here tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central. It's Infowars Nightly News. I'm your host, Rob Dew, and we will see you next time.
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.